Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Forgive Me Father 2. The sequel to the gorgeous Lovecraftian shooter is here. Does it exceed the original, or does it fall into the same shortcomings? Let's find out. Forgive Me Father 2 is a first-person Lovecraftian shooter with lots of boomy shooty-inspired blasting, meaning it's fast, no iron sights, and no cover. I think I should mention its predecessor, Review Here, which I thought was okay, but had a lot of jank and balance issues that kept it from being great. So what have they changed, and have they learned from their mistakes? Story in this early access version is very diminished, mostly told through voiceless letters. You start in an asylum with just a knife and are freed by an unknown voice, and the next thing you know, you're murdering Lovecraftian horrors. The gameplay is similar to the first on the surface, but underneath a lot of changes have been made, almost all for the better. Shooting feels much slicker as enemies tend to be less spongy, and overall you do a lot of damage to them, but they also do a lot of damage to you, which makes the combat fast, dangerous, and visceral. It's worth mentioning there's no hit scanners. All enemies fire visible projectiles, which are much easier to dodge, but again, do higher damage, making some zones bullet hell-esque in really fun ways. Weapons also feel punchier this time around as well, with more believable recoil, and the ability to often stagger enemies should you blast them up close. Overall, the shooting just feels very solid and much improved. Another key change and improvement is the upgrade system. The original game had a very controversial skill tree that ended up having problems with the game's balance, but this has now been nixed for a weapons-only upgrade system that allows you to switch between your upgrades at a hub between missions. To upgrade, you'll need to find points scattered throughout each individual level. This allows for a lot of fun mixing and matching across your weapons. Though I will admit the double barrel is so good, they're gonna have to add something awesome for me to change that shotgun. You can also buy and equip up to 3 powers, which recharge by killing enemies, and do things like increase your damage, decrease the damage you take, and more. One I can tell you fire off all 3 at once, meaning you can have some pretty cool power spikes that will augment your playstyle. Levels are more traditionally designed around linear boomer shooter style, focusing on that usual finding keys to open colored doors while murdering everything as you go along. The version I reviewed was the release version, so only had 10 levels and a boss, but you can replay those levels through the hub to find the secrets you missed. And honestly, that's Forgive Me Father 2. It changes or removes a lot of stuff that was janky in the first game for a more streamlined, gorgeous boomer shooter. So what do I like about Forgive Me Father 2? Well, the shooting feels so much better than the first game. It really is a joy to play. Weapons are very satisfying and punchy, enemies feel like fair challenges, and the different weapon types genuinely change how you play. Additionally, I found the levels to be very well designed, not only having a large amount of variety across them all, but also they have strong signposting, so I never got lost, as well as some really fun arenas that complemented the excellent combat. And lastly, yeah, the game looks really great, even better than the first one. The environments in particular are very clever, going from World War I trenches to a gorgeous mansion and more, paired with the absolutely gorgeous look of all of the hand-drawn enemies. When it comes to the bad, this game's difficulty curve is really weird, in that it's hard for the first bit when you don't have your full kit, but gets surprisingly easy once you actually have all of your weapons. I'm hoping future episodes up that challenge. Additionally, the current version's one boss kind of sucked, which honestly the first game's bosses also weren't anything to write home about, but this one was just a bullet sponge boredom fest that didn't feel like an interesting challenge, but more like me seeing if I was carrying enough ammo. And lastly, the game currently is very short and light on content, which I didn't mind because I'm curious to see what comes out next, but note that currently it only has about 2 hours of gameplay until they add more through early access. As you know, our game's here on a 3-point scale, must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And I must say, Forgive Me Father 2 takes all the mediocre bits of the first game and supplements them with slicker shooting, gorgeous areas, and better progression to make an all-around excellent boomer shooter experience. Even if you thought the first game was mid like I did, if you enjoy fast-paced shooters, you should definitely give this one a look. It shows incredible promise to be an exemplary game that lives up to the promises of its predecessor, and I'm happy to say that this time I do highly recommend Forgive Me Father 2. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played or heard of Forgive Me Father or the sequel, are you going to check it out now? Please let me know in the comments, but regardless, I do recommend going out and giving this one a look.